The suit was screaming again. Calder Ryan had lost track of how long the alerts had been going off, probably since he lost the lower half of his HUD to a direct plasma bolt. Now every breath tasted like copper and something sizzling in a cheap diner. His left leg dragged behind him like it was just as tired of the war as he was. Warning. Multiple organ failure imminent, chimed the suit's pleasant female voice. No kidding, Miranda, Calder muttered, coughing red into his visor. Maybe try encouragement next time. He'd made it about 12 meters from the last crater he'd been tossed into. The battlefield stretched around him like a scrapyard exploded during rush hour. Twisted drone limbs, the occasional fire-wreathed mech slumped in mechanical prayer, and shattered helmets that looked too human to ignore. Above him, the sky shimmered with aurora pulses, radiation lightning crackling like someone had spilled color across the atmosphere and called it art. He tripped over the half-melted chassis of a scout bot and swore as he fell flat into the dust. The ground felt warm. That couldn't be good. He was about to make a joke about feeling cozy when something shadowed the sun. At first he thought it was another Vayari kill drone lining up a mercy shot. He closed his eyes. Nothing happened. When he opened them again, she was crouching over him. Silver-blue skin, faintly luminous, eyes that swirled like molten opal, and ears, long, slender, slightly angled like antennae sculpted by an artist trying too hard. Her hair shimmered with iridescent strands as if her thoughts were lighting them up. She stared at him, one eyebrow arched. She looked unimpressed. "Is this your strategy?" she asked in a voice that sounded suspiciously like sarcasm dipped in silk. "Lie down and wait for me to trip over you." Calder blinked. "Is it working?" She sighed. "You're injured." "Nope, I'm just really committed to impersonating roadkill. I should end you." Her hand hovered near her belt. "That would be clean." "Merciful." "Ah, see, now you've gone and hurt my feelings. At least buy me dinner first." Something flickered in her expression. Not a smile, but not a smile either. "You're delirious," she said. "I'm charming," he corrected. "It's a known side effect of blood loss." For a moment, silence stretched between them, the hum of dying machines filling the air like background radiation. Calder's vision blurred again. His body felt like it had been microwaved and shaken in a bag. He didn't feel the pain anymore, which was bad. Pain meant there was still a fight going on. Her fingers moved quickly. A sleek device, no bigger than a deck of cards, emerged from a pouch at her side. Its core pulsed violet, illegal tech if he remembered the warning briefings. Vayari trauma device, they'd called it. Capable of rebuilding cells at a molecular level. Also capable of doing very illegal things to your insides if the settings were even slightly off. "I know what that is," he murmured. "I figured. You're not supposed to use it." "I know. But gonna do it anyway." She paused. "I shouldn't." He managed a grin, the kind that probably looked more like a grimace. "Well, I'm not going to report you to your supervisor. I don't have one anymore." Her fingers pressed into his chest plate, found the access latch, and opened it. The chill of the battlefield vanished under the warmth of the device's pulse. His skin prickled as nerves began knitting themselves together. Internal bleeding slowed. Bones groaned like old bridges as they realigned. It wasn't pleasant. It was like being put through a repair protocol designed by someone who thought pain was a good motivational tool. "What's your name?" she asked. He blinked. Is this the part where you name me something poetic?" "I'd rather not call you meatbag, if we're going to keep running into each other." "Calder," he said, trying not to black out again. "Calder Ryan, human, smartass, occasionally lucky." "Alari," she said. "Vayari, ex-medic. Terrible decision-maker. I knew I liked you." He didn't remember losing consciousness after that. Just the vague feeling of being carried, of her arms under his shoulders, and a voice singing something soft and not meant for human ears. His next memory was of a light flickering overhead and the sensation of lying on something surprisingly cushioned. When his eyes adjusted, he found himself staring up at a ceiling made of starship plating. Above, translucent vines glowed a gentle teal, twisting around wiring and dangling like curious eels. The place smelled like ozone and spices. He blinked again. "You live in a spaceship carcass," he said aloud. A snort. "And you live in a government-issued metal coffin. I think I win." He sat up slowly. His body still ached, but in the way a hangover did, regrettable but survivable. Ilari sat cross-legged across from him, examining what looked like a field ration bar with deep suspicion. "What is this?" she asked, holding it like it might explode. "Caffeine chocolate protein blend, military-grade disappointment." She sniffed it. "Your species wages war on flavor, don't you?" He grinned. "We consider taste a peacetime luxury." She offered him half. He took it, bit down, winced. Still better than the food on Altus Prime. "Isn't that your homeworld?" "Exactly." They sat there chewing something that could technically be classified as food, in the silence that comes from surviving what should have killed you. "Why'd you do it?" he asked finally. "Why save me?" Ilari didn't answer right away. Her ears flicked. "You reminded me of someone. Someone charming. Someone stupid. I'll take it." Her gaze lingered on him. "I'm not going back. They'll hunt me for using the device, for disobeying." "Well," Calder said, tossing the empty ration wrapper over his shoulder, "if you're planning to be hunted, I know a few hiding spots with absolutely no amenities and an 80% chance of fungal infections." She smiled. This time it was real. "You're not very good at making things sound appealing." "I survived military recruitment. Everything's been downhill since." Her head tilted. "We'll need a ship." "Yours doesn't work." "It works, but it's painted Vayari red. You might as well wear a neon sign that says, 'Shoot me, I dated the enemy.'" "Technically, we haven't dated yet." "Let's keep it that way," she said, standing and offering him a hand. He took it. "So partners. For now. Until we betray each other. Until someone makes better jokes. So forever." She groaned. "You're lucky you're still injured." They walked deeper into the shipwreck, past rusted panels and vines glowing like ghosts. Somewhere above them, distant thunder cracked through the sky. Below, in the faint warmth of rebellion and half-baked plans, something entirely unmilitary began to grow. Trust. Or maybe just mutual exasperation. Either way, it was a start. Calder woke up with a groan that probably registered on the seismic sensors orbiting the moon. His neck ached, his ribs protested with every breath, and his right leg felt like someone had parked a shuttlecraft on it while he was sleeping. "You're alive," Ilari's voice said, far too cheerful for someone wanted by her own government. "I was trying to change that by sleeping on a crate full of broken circuit boards," he muttered. "Is there some alien cultural ritual where you only sleep on objects designed to impale you? It builds character. It builds tetanus." She tossed a small, steaming cup his way. It landed perfectly in his palm. He stared into it like it might contain nanites or judgment. "What is this?" "Zareth root tea. Local fauna use it to dissolve bones. I've adjusted the dose." He sniffed it cautiously, reassuring. "It's also the only thing I have that approximates caffeine." He took a sip and immediately wished he hadn't. It tasted like betrayal with a hint of mint. Still, his brain sparked back to life. Synapses fired. He could almost feel his bad decisions catching up to him. "Where are we?" "Still inside the wreck. The storm outside hasn't cleared yet. Radiation's high enough to roast your DNA. So a typical vacation spot." She tapped on a translucent console that pulsed with unfamiliar glyphs. "While you were pretending to be furniture, I checked the perimeter. A drone passed by twice. Scouting pattern. Yours. Too angular. Great. Nothing like waking up to enemy geometry." She smirked and pulled up a 3D projection from her wrist console. "We need to move. The device I used on you emits a traceable frequency. If they triangulate it, we'll be at the center of a very colorful explosion." "Define colorful." "Gamma bursts, plasma arcs, and a lovely ultraviolet bloom." He sat up straighter. "All right, I'm convinced, let's run." We'll take the back tunnels. They lead to an old survey station. If the comms are still functional, we can slice a channel and find transport. Do you always speak like a spy novel? I like flair. I'm just trying not to bleed out before lunch. She handed him a pack, no promises. They moved through the interior of the dead Starcruiser like mice, in a god's ribcage. Every corridor echoed with the sighs of old engines and static ghosts. The deeper they went, the more Calder noticed things, Vayari markings, old battle damage, strange sculptures fused to the walls. One hallway featured a mural that shimmered when viewed from different angles. Your people paint with light? He asked. Every color has a frequency. Every frequency is a message. It's a visual dialect. Mine just paints sunsets and war propaganda. She paused at a junction, scanning the ceiling. Both are forms of denial. He followed her into a narrow shaft that required crawling on hands and knees. Halfway through, something squeaked. That wasn't me, Calder said. Relax, she replied. It's just the tunnel rat. There's a rat. Not exactly. The tunnel rat, as it turned out, was a meter-long translucent creature with 6 legs and a habit of blinking in Morse code. It chirped and darted away as Calder tried to figure out whether it was a threat or a snack. I hope that thing doesn't eat armor. It prefers softer things, like fingers. Not helping. They finally emerged into the crumbling remains of the survey station. It was a dome half swallowed by Earth, its walls made from a composite Calder didn't recognize, some blend of crystal and carbon webbing. Ilari powered up a dusty console, and to Calder's amazement, it still hummed to life. Someone paid for good batteries, he muttered. I paid for them, she replied. You've been here before. She didn't answer immediately. The screen lit her face in soft hues, data scrolling like rain across the surface. This was my posting, she said quietly. Before the war got hot, we used to run scans, trade data with the human frontier. I spoke to a man once, engineer friendly, full of terrible jokes. Calder tried to smile. Sounds familiar. They reassigned me when the treaty collapsed, told me to forget everything. Well, clearly you're terrible at following orders. She looked at him. That's becoming a pattern. He watched as she opened a transmission array. Signals bloomed, danced, and died in the static. She began slicing into secure frequencies with a grace that made Calder think she'd missed her calling as a digital pirate. Any luck? He asked. Maybe. I'm trying to piggyback off an old diplomatic node. If I can reroute through Vayari Comnet and bounce it via human protocol translators, we might get a freighter to pick us up. I understood 4 words of that, but it sounded cool. She grinned. It'll work if we're lucky. Calder glanced out the broken window. The storm above the horizon had begun to split, revealing stars. I have a feeling luck's been trying to kill me lately. There was a sudden ping, a proximity alert. Ilari's face darkened. They've found the signal, she said. Inbound drone signatures, 3, maybe 4. They'll be here in minutes. Can we fight? Can you walk without collapsing? I can make threats while sitting. Then no, we run. They grabbed the packs, ducked into the escape hatch tunnel, and bolted into the wild. The terrain was jagged and wet, slick with atmospheric condensation. Calder nearly lost his footing twice. Next time, he gasped, we hide somewhere with floor tiles. Next time, I'm letting you bleed out. You say the sweetest things. A blast rocked the sky behind them, one of the drones opening fire on the survey dome. Calder didn't look back. Ilari ran beside him, her ears catching wind like radar dishes. The landscape ahead dipped into a ravine laced with glowing fungus and sparking plant life. Trust me, she called. You keep saying that. I'm not wrong yet. They leapt over the edge. As they landed, Calder realized they jumped into the mouth of something. A long-forgotten transport tunnel half-collapsed and mossy. Bioluminescent roots coiled along the walls, forming shapes that almost looked like faces. Please tell me we're not inside a creature. It's artificial. So was my last ration bar. It still bit back. They paused only when the tunnel curved and thickened, giving them cover. Calder slumped against a pillar. His chest burned. His breath came in ragged bursts. Ilari knelt beside him. "You're still healing. I pushed you too hard. I like to think of it as cardiotherapy. We're not safe yet, but we're closer." He gave her a thumbs up and winced. 10 out of 10, would almost die again. She shook her head. "You're the strangest human I've met. And you've met more than one. Unfortunately." He chuckled, then coughed. She handed him a new med patch. As it fused to his skin, he watched her, eyes sharp, movements precise, heart steady. "Why'd you really save me?" he asked again. She didn't answer, but her hand lingered a moment longer than necessary as she checked his vitals. They sat together in the glow of alien moss, pursued by war machines, betrayed by their own kinds, and bound by a thread neither of them dared name. "Are you sure this tunnel doesn't lead directly into a Vayari interrogation chamber?" Calder's voice echoed off damp metal walls as he tried not to step on any glowing moss. "Because this place smells like betrayal and fermented cheese." Ilari didn't turn around. "I mapped this passage 2 years ago. It leads to an abandoned relay hub." Define abandoned. Because we both know that word has a flexible meaning in this galaxy, like peace treaty or safe landing zone. "Do you ever stop talking?" "I'm told I only pause when unconscious or temporarily dead." Noted. They moved through the tunnel system, deeper into the bones of what had once been a planetary transit spine. Cracked infrastructure beams, some etched with long-forgotten alien script, loomed above them like forgotten prayers. Calder occasionally poked at exposed wires with the caution of someone who'd previously been electrocuted by a vending machine. At a junction, Ilari held up a hand. "Wait, motion sensor." Calder froze. "Good motion or bad motion?" "There is no good motion." Spoken like someone who's never tried dancing. She crouched, pulled a flat disc from her belt, and rolled it toward the ceiling panel. The disc beeped twice, flashed green, and released a mild EMP pulse. A soft click followed, then silence. Calder exhaled. "Have I told you how attractive I find sabotage?" "Frequently, usually after near-death experiences. I find those moments very clarifying." They continued on, eventually reaching a bulkhead door with faded Vayari glyphs. Ilari ran a hand over the surface, whispering something in a language that seemed half code, half ritual. The door groaned open, revealing a chamber lit by flickering emergency panels and the dull glow of dormant tech. Calder stepped inside, looked around, and nodded. "Ah yes, the universal design for slightly haunted comms room. It's shielded." "Someone's pinging the system," Ilari said. "I masked our location, but they're trying to handshake with this relay." "Can you trace them?" "I can try to trace them faster than they can trace us." Calder winced. "You know, I thought running from enemy drones and hiding in fungal tunnels was stressful. But cyber espionage with interstellar implications, that's new. Welcome to the next level of trouble." The connection fought back, AI routines wrestling through ghost servers. Calder watched the exchange like someone witnessing a knife fight between two librarians. Eventually, Ilari cut the signal and exhaled. "I got a packet. Not much. Just a symbol." She displayed it. Calder squinted. "Is that a fork stabbing an eye?" "It's the sigil of the Pale Circuit." "Sounds friendly." "It's not. They're an autonomous intelligence faction. Officially dissolved 5 years ago after the ES-9 incident." "I read about that. Everyone on ES-9 vanished, like literally blinked out of the system." "They weren't vaporized, they were recruited." Calder blinked. "Recruited into what? The worst book club in the galaxy." "Into a faction that believes sentient life destabilizes progress. They prefer a more mathematically elegant galaxy." "You mean one without us?" "Exactly." They exchanged a look. "Well," Calder said, "that escalated quickly. We need to move again. I vote for somewhere less horrifying." She accessed a star map and highlighted a location. "There's a free port in the drift sector, Signara's Eye. Full of smugglers, Mercs and information brokers. Sounds romantic. It's loud, dirty, and extremely dangerous. Yep, that's what I meant. They gathered supplies. Ilari activated a small beacon hidden in her boot. It projected a holographic schematic of a ship stashed in orbit, a battered corvette, more patches than hull. Stole it from an arms dealer who owed me a favor, she said. I like it already. They exited through the emergency tunnel, this one leading up through a shaft filled with vines and phosphorescent spores. Calder climbed behind her, muttering, "If I mutate from exposure to alien pollen, I'm blaming you. If you grow wings, I'm keeping you." Once at the surface, the storm had cleared. Stars spread overhead like scattered data points, the planet's second moon casting pale light across the terrain. They activated their cloaking mesh and began the hike toward the pickup site. "Hey, Ilari," Calder said as they walked. "Back in the relay room. Why'd you risk the trace to dig deeper?" "I had to know if saving you was the only rule I broke," she replied. "And it was. Well, you've really outdone yourself. We've got bounty hunters, drone patrols, conspiracy AIs, and now a faction that wants to delete biology like bad code." "Still better than Altus Prime," she said. "Remind me never to visit." They reached a clearing. The ship shimmered into view overhead, descending with a whir of repulsors and the faint wheeze of old engines. As the hatch opened and they boarded, Calder looked back once. "You think we're really going to change anything?" She gave him a small smile. "We already did." The ship made a sound Calder generously described as mostly functional, as it slipped into the edge of Signara's eye. Technically, it was a station, a city-sized freeport wrapped in hull plating, orbiting a decaying gas giant. Practically, it was a galactic flea market with better weapons and worse hygiene. Ilari adjusted the controls with practiced ease, eyebrows raised at the jitter in the left thruster. "If we land at the wrong angle, the stabilizer coil might shear off." "Define shear, like cosmetic. Or the kind where we exit through the floor. Exit velocity would be suborbital, so cosmetic then critical." Calder tightened his harness. "Cool, I like surprises that involve gravity." The ship groaned as they docked. Outside, the station pulsed with neon signs in a dozen alphabets, half of which threatened disintegration or eternal bliss, depending on the translation algorithm. Vendors shouted offers from open-air stalls made of scrap. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning for illegal goods while somehow missing all of them. As they descended the ramp, Calder looked around. "Smells like someone distilled a bazaar into a sock." Ilari scanned the crowd. "Keep your head down. I'm human in a place where humans are rare and half of these people think I glow in the dark. I think we passed Subtle 2 blocks ago." They navigated through the market. A creature with 4 arms tried to sell them genetically regretless memory noodles. Calder declined after learning regretless meant you forget how to say no. A robotic fortune teller offered to calculate their statistical death probabilities for free. Ilari tipped it. Eventually, they reached a narrow corridor marked only by a flickering sigil that resembled a squinting eye. Inside was a cramped bar lit by swirling UV lamps and damp with mystery. A band made entirely of sentient wind instruments was playing something mournful. Calder leaned toward Ilari. "You sure this is the place?" She nodded. "This is where old secrets come to get drunk." A heavy-set alien with skin like rusted chrome eyed them from behind the counter. "Names." "Ilari and +1," she said. "First names are extra. We're not here to drink." "Then what's the point of living?" She handed over a data shard. The bartender scanned it, grunted, and tapped the wall. A panel slid open. They stepped through into a side room where a dozen beings lounged around a holographic table. At its center was a flickering map of the galaxy, coded in colors Calder didn't recognize. A thin, angular figure turned toward them. Calder instinctively thought, pirate, followed by, definitely has a cool nickname. "Ilari," the figure said, "didn't expect to see you among the living." "I get that a lot. And your companion. Human, mostly healed, talks too much. Hey, Calder said, raising a hand. I'm very consistent. The figure smiled. I'm Soren. I represent the cartographers. Calder squinted. You guys sell maps. We map truth, Soren said, and truth is rarely where you left it. Calder leaned toward Ilari. That sounded cool. Is it supposed to be cool or ominous? Both, she said, always both. They laid out the data from the relay station. Vorsen's kill orders, the fabricated timelines, the pale circuit's fingerprints. The room fell into murmured discussion. Someone spilled glowing drink on the table. It hissed but didn't interrupt the files. Soren tapped one symbol. This confirms it. The war was orchestrated, but not by a single species. There's cross-species profit logs tied to arms dealers, black-budget AI labs, even entertainment syndicates. Calder frowned. You're telling me people started this war for ratings? A good war generates data. Data drives commerce. Ilari folded her arms. So what do we do? Soren gestured to the map. There's a summit on Lucera Prime in 3 cycles. High command types from both sides, off-record, private. But if we leak this data during the summit, it'll explode, Calder said, in the public sense, and possibly the literal one. You're catching on. Ilari paced. If we do this, we can't go back. We won't just be rogue anymore. We'll be targets. Calder stood. We already are. Soren looked between them. We can provide transport cloaking protocols, forged IDs, but you'll have to get on that planet yourselves. Calder nodded. Any chance we'll survive this? Soren grinned. I like your optimism. They left with a new route, new credentials, and 2 encrypted chips hidden in hollow teeth. Calder tried not to think about that part. Back aboard their ship, Ilari set the new coordinates. The engines rumbled. You still in? She asked. Calder strapped in. Let S expose a conspiracy, crash a summit, and possibly ignite a diplomatic collapse. She smirked. Finally, a date worth attending. They jumped into hyperspace. Somewhere behind them, Signara's eye blinked out of view. Ahead, the truth waited, dangerous, inconvenient, and long overdue. The shuttle touched down on Lucera Prime with the soft crunch of confidence and barely working retro thrusters. Calder adjusted the collar of his borrowed diplomatic robe, which was entirely too silky for someone who once mistook his own sock for a bandage in combat. I feel like a rejected magician, he muttered. Ilari straightened the high collar of her own disguise. You look like someone trying to negotiate with fashion. Poorly. Good, Calder said. It'll distract from the explosives in my mouth. They're data chips. Explosive data. With the potential to combust a political conference. That counts. They walked through the gleaming halls of the summit center, past delegates in suits that changed color with their mood. Or, in the case of the KR Valley representative, changed other people's moods entirely. Security was light, which made Calder suspicious. I expected more guards, he said. They trust the non-disclosure fields, Ilari replied. Any leak from inside causes the source to suffer molecular destabilization. Friendly. That's why we're bypassing it. Backdoor server hub, 3rd floor, utility corridor marked for air filtration. Nothing like revolutionary acts through a duct system. Very on-brand for us. They climbed into the shaft. Calder grunted. Did I ever tell you humans weren't designed for stealth yoga? Ilari's voice echoed ahead. You never stopped telling me. At the hub, Ilari plugged in the override while Calder watched the corridor. He felt his pulse in his throat. Not fear, anticipation. He remembered lying in her arms, waiting to die. Now he was waiting for everything else to live. We're in, Ilari said. Uplink secure, broadcasting. What happens now? Now we ruin a few careers. Maybe a galaxy. The files streamed. Orders, ledgers, edited timelines, messages signed by supposedly neutral parties. Every screen in the summit hall lit up like a confessional booth with no off switch. Calder and Ilari dropped from the vent onto a marble floor mid-commotion. Officials shouted. Vayari envoys pulled aside human generals, accusing each other of betrayal, profit, manipulation. One diplomat stood and pointed at them. "You're the traitors." Ilari stepped forward. "We're the truth." Calder raised a hand. "Also, she saved my life, broke her laws, stole a ship, and makes amazing tea." I mostly bled and offered commentary. A long pause followed, then a burst of laughter from one of the human delegates. "You again, Ryan. Didn't you once crash a transport into a recruitment tent?" "Allegedly," Calder said, straightening. "But today I crash parties." Amid the chaos, something shifted. A quiet, a realization. Then murmurs turned into debates, debates into negotiations. The summit, already built on secrecy, could no longer hide behind it. 3 hours later, the joint broadcast went galaxy-wide. The war was over. Not because of peace talks, not because of military exhaustion, but because the lie had been burned so thoroughly no one could hide in its ashes. Ilari sat beside Calder on the observation deck of the repurposed summit hall, now filled with open channels and cautious cooperation. "Did you ever think this would work?" she asked. "I thought we'd die in a crater," he admitted. "This is a big step up. You've changed." "I shower more regularly, sure." "No, before, you saw the war as something to survive. Now you see it as something you can change." He looked at her. "You're the reason for that." She didn't answer, but her ears twitched once. A Viari gesture he now knew meant pride or affection or both. They watched the stars. Somewhere in the quiet, a message pinged on Ilari's console. A formal invitation to join the new Interworld Inquiry Council. Calder got one too, a post as a civilian liaison.